he's with me. Good evening, everyone. Hello. Hello. Do you have a cold beer in your hand? I hope so. All right, we're ready to start. Good evening. My name is Diane Fitzpatrick, and I am the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Manchester. It is such a great honor to be here tonight, and I want to welcome all of Brian's friends for being here. It's a little different than the breakfast. We're happy to honor this very special man. But before we get started with our program, I want to thank all our sponsors for making this possible this evening. I want to express special thanks to our presenting sponsor, Basque, and I'd like to ask Nick Bayless to join me on stage. I also would like to invite Diane Mercier to join us, the presenting from People's Bank tonight. Last but not least, I'd like to welcome Steve McMahon, who will serve as our MC. This is going to be a lot of fun. Thank you and have a good evening. Okay. So,
you want Steve or
Nick?
You're right, Nick. You're right. Hello. Excuse me. Can I have your attention, please? I know we're all here to have a great time and honor Brian. So the attention, please. Come on, hang in there. Come on. So, Brian's been with us 42 years. And I knew Brian before then. And a lot of people in athletics knew Brian. Some of you may not know, Brian was an outstanding athlete from Keene. And when I heard he was coming to Manchester to work at the Boys and Girls Club, I was very excited, and my younger brother Alex would spend a lot of time at the club, and he would give me feedback about how outstanding Brian was at the club. And over time, things just got more outstanding. And without question, Brian, just an incredible job. As you know, the club's near and dear to myself and my family, and no one does it better than the club, and a lot has to do with Brian. And Brian, you know, there's an old saying that everybody can be replaced, and I doubt that. We're not going to replace you, Brian. I also had the distinct pleasure of working with Brian. 10 years ago, I was asked by Brian and the staff, Steve McMahon, to join them in their capital campaign. And they asked me to give a year of devotion to raising, what was it, $7.5 million? $7.5 million. Well, a year turned into 3 years. But I will tell you, I really got into it. Meeting every Wednesday morning with Brian and the staff and seeing how dedicated they were, I was inspired. And over time, I felt like part of the family. I really did. And we are so lucky here in Manchester, in the greater Manchester area, to have such an incredible team. And those 3 years went by in less than a year, Brian. They really did, and a lot of it due to you. And last but not least, Brian, I am sure you have sacrificed a lot of your time, a lot of your treasure. With your character, Brian, there's no doubt in my mind you could have made a greater fortune, but there is a great saying. Your wealth is not measured by the thickness of your wallet. It's measured by those who love you. So look around, Brian. You're one of the richest men I know. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. We're going to talk a little bit right now about a trip that Brian and I took to Germany in 2010. We had 3 goals when we went to Germany: The first was to have a good time. We definitely had the good time. The second was to go skiing in Austria. We were going to a place called the Zillertal. But before I get into that story, I want you to pay attention to a video from two of our good friends from Germany, George and his daughter Hannah. George is a guy that played for me when I coached in Germany, and Hannah, his daughter, was just here last year for 5 months volunteering at the Boys and Girls Club. So we'll follow this up and talk about Austria in a second.
Hi Brian, we send you our best wishes for your well-deserved retirement out of Germany.
Me too, Brian. Best wishes. Hope you know what you have to do with your time. I know nobody is listening, so I have a big problem, a serious problem, because police called me the other day. They found unclaimed ski in the Alps, and they are looking for the owner. And the tracks they are following are going from the Zillertal to Weiglertal. Police spent some time over there, I don't know why, but from Weiglertal to Bayreuth is just a small hop, so they showed up. But you know me, I did not reveal any names, so I think they are on your track to the States, but the best thing would be you come over and clear that problem with the police. So, you know, you can show up anytime you want over here in Bayreuth. See you, Brian. Have a nice time. Bye.
Bye.
So when Brian and I were going to Germany, Judy put the onus on me to make sure Brian behaved, which is always a heavy responsibility. And one of the things she said, make sure he stays on the trail and doesn't go off, if they say in German, off piste, doesn't go off trail. So we're up in the Zillertal, we're at 10,000 feet and we're skiing. And of course, what's Brian do? Off into the powder, deep into the powder, hasn't skied in years, gets to a real steep part of it, takes off, goes ass over tea kettle, comes out of the powder, only one ski. And if anyone ever skis in powder, once you lose a ski, good luck. But he's searching for about 20 minutes, can't find it. We're 2/3 of the way up the mountain. We have to go to a lift to get to the top to ski all the way down. It's the only way you can get there. We couldn't have skied from where we were. And the guy on the lift told us, I'm closing in 5 minutes. I don't care about that guy up there on the mountain. So Brian comes out of the powder on one ski, skis the rest of the trail on the pack trail down to the lift, gets a ride up, and then takes a snowmobile down. He can tell you about the harrowing trip he took down on the snowmobile on the mountain. So when we get back, we go to the rental shop in town, and Brian returns half of what he had rented. And George, speaking German, is helping us through this issue, and the guy at the store says, you have to go to the police station and report a missing ski. So we go to the police station. George doesn't let me go in because he knows I'll screw it up. Brian's in there not knowing a word of German, and George is explaining it, but Brian could tell you he's kind of figuring out what's going on. Anyway, this all gets settled. We go home, and now George is telling us the police are still looking at him. 7 years later, he's still a fugitive on international law or after him. Our third goal was to try some German beer. Actually, it might have been the first goal, but anyway, the main beer I wanted Brian to try is this tiny village called Weiglertal in Germany, and there you can see a sign in the guest house, and on the right is the best beer on earth. And I told Brian he's going to love this beer, and we did. And so we tried to mimic it tonight with this beer that you're being offered, Saddlebag Brown Ale. And on November 24th, a few of us went over at the suggestion of Ed Murphy from Amoskeag Beverage. He had suggested and recommended to Brian, or to us, that maybe Brian should make his own brew of beer for this event. And we made 620 gallons of Saddlebag Brown Ale. It's distributed in 17 different bars around the city right now, and it's going to be able to be found in stores. The people at Great North Ale Works offered their brewery for us to do that, so back on the 24th, we went to Great North with Rob North, and they were just so great about helping us brew this beer and make it available for you tonight, and then as long as it lasts in the city. On Monday, Brian went over and was involved, and you can see Jim Trunsolito and Judy and Natalie there with him, and they canned the beer, put the label on it, and now we have the great fortune of having that beer here tonight. So make sure you give it a try, and a special thank you both to Emmuskeg Beverages and to Great North Ale Works. I do want to emphasize this was a unique opportunity for Brian because he's a brewmaster, he loves homebrew, but in no way is the Boys and Girls Club benefiting from any sales of any of this beer. We are not a microbrewery all of a sudden at the Boys and Girls Club. One final reminder, there's a table over in the corner near where we're going to have pictures where you can write notes to Brian tonight if you want. We'll compile them and put them in a book to have messages for him to have a memory of this evening. And now I'd like to introduce Diane Mercier.
Hey, John, would you come join us for this toast? So we need you to raise your own version of champagne, which looks a lot like a can of beer. Okay, so join us in this toast, please. Brian, nature magically suits a man to his fortunes by making them the fruit of his character, Ralph Waldo Emerson said. And here we are tonight, Brian, the fruits of your character.
You made a sacred commitment long ago to generations of children who today are now parents, grandparents, leaders, teachers, and learners. We are each of us made better because of your inspiration, your compassion, your joy, and because you have for so long been someone in our community upon whom we can all trust and depend. This is such rare fruit, Brian.
You are a remarkable force, a treasured friend, a beloved husband and father, and you are the very definition of a man in full.
Brian, tonight we honor you, we thank you, we show our love and appreciation of you. Tonight we all raise our glass to you. Cheers, Brian.
Cheers, Brian Tremblay.
Now, Brian has a few things going in his life. One, we know the fabulous work he's done for 42 years at the club. Secondly, he loves to brew beer. But thirdly, he's the lead singer in a band. So at this point, I want to introduce the Permanent Vacation Band. And while they're setting up to do a few songs for us, pay attention to the screens for some more tributes to Brian. Thank you.